I love being silly. It's all good.
Yeah.
So Hallie, welcome to the Magnificent Mamas Thrive Show. You know, I have shared with you that the Thrive Show is all about our tools, our tips that we can offer to the world, offer to the other magnificent mamas or their children, and maybe even their significant others, their family members, just some things that we can add into our lives to allow us to go from a struggle or just survival to thriving. I believe we're here for a bigger purpose, and I think that there's so many amazing tools that are very easy and accessible for all of us to have at our fingertips to apply into our lives. It doesn't have to take a lot of money, it doesn't have to take a lot of effort, but we're here to thrive. So welcome to the Magnificent Mamas Thrive Show. I'm so happy to have you, and I can't wait for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and what you have going on in the world.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Hallie Steinberg. I am a certified health coach with Hallies Healthy Living, a mom of 3, a wife, a dog owner, a gardener. There's so many adjectives I can describe myself with. But I'm very heart-centered, and I think that's very important, that I lead with passion for what I believe in. And I believe that we can make a difference in our lifestyle through simple changes, whether that be through nutrition changes, lifestyle changes, attitude changes. You know, what these small steps can make a huge difference in our health journey. And that is really what I am all about. I'm all about inspiring those healthy changes through simple changes. My background is actually in biology. I was pre-med, and then I ended up going to education, so I became a special ed teacher. So I work with predominantly children with language-based learning differences for 8 years in New York, and I love working with families. I love working with children in particular, but I love overall just helping people wherever they are in their journey.
Wow, that's awesome. So wait, back up or pause for a second. Are you a New Yorker?
My husband is. So my husband and I met at college in Philadelphia, and we moved to New York together. We weren't married at the time. And so rather than go to med school, I ended up going to get some master's in education. I had a regular master's and a special ed master's at a different school. And then I became a teacher. So we lived in New York for 12 years and came back to Pennsylvania more recently, 12 years ago. But my husband's
what part of New York?
A diehard New Yorker.
Which part?
Westchester County,
okay.
The suburbs of New York City.
I was raised on Long Island, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
I always say once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker, and I'm so proud to be a New Yorker. However, I'm more proud that I'm not in New York anymore.
I feel you. I feel that.
It definitely sets a precedence of what the personality style I really believe that New York has molded me and created the being that I am, that go type of a person. But again, I'm just so glad to be living at the beach, because that's really more my style, not the beach on Long Island.
Well, you know, I am so thrilled. I mean, I lived in the city for 5 years and I lived in the suburbs for 7. And to get that experience, I mean, I'd never experienced New York City, and living there really opened my eyes to a lot of different things, a lot of different avenues opened up for me, and it was an amazing experience, and I'm so happy. But for me, I'm a big gardener, and I love nature, and I love being outside. So for me, moving out of the city also was really great, especially to build a family.
Yes, I definitely feel like lifestyle is for sure, it's choices, and it's about what you want out of life, and your environment is either going to make that or you have to create it. And so just even coming out of that hustle and bustle, so you can have more time and space to really get clear on what it is that you desire. And I know as a health coach, you're sitting in a bowl of veggies and fruit. If you're in that hustle, or you're so harried to try to make ends meet, then you don't necessarily take into consideration all the important things that feed and fuel your lifestyle. So tell us a little bit more about your 4 pillars of health that I know you have as a part of your coaching, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, it's four pillars. It stands for the LEAN acronym. LEAN standing for L, lifestyle, E, exercise, A, attitude or mindset, and N, nutrition. And I think no matter what age you are, where you are in your health journey, those four pillars incorporate your health. So it's not just about what you eat, it's how you move your body, it's how you live your life. When do you eat? How do you exercise? Where you drink, what you drink, all these things, as well as your mindset. And mindset, I cannot downplay how important mindset is with your health, but in general, mindset in general, that attitude helps you throughout your life. So regardless of age, those four pillars can help someone really look at those small changes that they need to make in these four aspects of their life.
So, okay, so you say attitude and mindset. What if someone says, oh my gosh, but you don't understand, Hallie, I have had this crappy life and, you know, I started off bad and I'm now in bad marriage and blah, blah, blah. Like, easy for you to say.
Well, I would say, you know, I always come up and say, you know, I always acknowledge what people are feeling no matter what. And I think everybody needs acknowledgement, but it doesn't really matter so much what I think. It matters what you think. So if you feel that you know, things have been bad, and if you come up with that mindset, it's not going to change, there's something I can do, or, you know, an excuse of some sort, you know, it's been a hard life, I've had really horrible things happen to me. If you're at that mindset, nothing I can say is going to affect that. You need to go decide where you want to be, what you want to do, and change your mindset to a positive mindset. Now, it's so much easier saying, okay, positive mindset, what does that mean? But really taking a look at your life from a different perspective. Sometimes you need to actually step out. And a side note, I took a course, a Yale course, it's free, it's online, called The Science of Well-Being. And it was a fantastic course. So I'm plugging that because it was such a wonderful course about basically talking about mindset and happiness. And one of the neat things I came away with is 40% of happiness is genetic, 10% is situational, our environment and things that, you know, situational things that have happened to us. And then 50% is genetic, 10% is situational, and 40% is mindset, habits that you choose, where you want to go, goals that you set. So 40% of our happiness can be affected by our mindset and our sustainable goals. And so I incorporate that. That's not only just with health and wellness, that's for business, that's for self-development, confidence. I mean, you can look at that from any perspective, but that's why I love working with attitude and mindset, because I work with children, and a lot of children in particular have a power struggle with food because of parents telling them what they should be eating or what they can't be eating, what they, you know, restriction. So that getting away from that power mentality of food, and also the diet mentality. And sadly, our society has so much restriction and such a diet mindset of we can't eat certain things. And I believe that with moderation and healthy eating and healthy habits, we can eat all different types of things. We can have fun and do all these wonderful things, but living in moderation, not these extreme mindsets that a lot of us find with nutrition, with lifestyle in general.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's really interesting. And how do you have when you said you work with kids, how do you not have a power struggle? Because I have a near 15-year-old who thinks I'm full of bogus because I, you know, eat really healthy and I don't encourage sugar for every meal. So how do you teach a 15-year-old the importance and also the mental effects that it takes on their being? I think it takes them over, quite honestly.
Well, I mean, I can relate. I have a 15-year-old. I have three girls, 15-year-old, 13-year-old, and 9-year-old. So I have different stages right now. So from a mom perspective, I can relate up to age 15. I don't have anybody older yet, but I can look at it from a health coach perspective, a teacher perspective, and a mom perspective. Now, teenagers in particular are really challenging because they have, first off, many of their goals is not so much for health, it's to look a certain way, a social ideal that they're seeing usually through social media or TV or some kind of print or a movie. They also have the peer pressure for a lot of things. They're inundated with junk food out there, you know, constant parties and things, well, maybe not during COVID, but constant, the nutrition that teenagers typically eat, is pretty poor. Usually high fat, the poor fats, not the healthy fats, high sugar, a lot of carb heavy, not enough protein, healthy fats. But it's not only that, it's also about how, the struggle with parents and the power struggle that a lot of children go through. If your mom and dad tell you to do something, teenagers are in their own way rebelling. They want to do their own thing. They want to form their own independence. They also want to feel the power to make their own choices, but they also want your support. So it's a really difficult thing to do, to work with teenagers in particular. So when I work with teenagers, I take a step back and I really listen to where they're coming from. And once again, it's not emotional, because with parents and family members, it's emotional. There's the connection, and there's a lot of emotion. There's sometimes heated feelings. There's a lot there. Where with me, I am there to assist. I'm there to listen and to coach. I'm going to educate. And what I find with teenagers in particular, they take it in, they listen. They don't always necessarily choose the decisions that maybe are the best choices, but they have the information. And my goal is to give them that information, so that baby steps, that when they get older, if they want to come back to that information and make better choices than maybe what they're doing now, they have that information. They have the foundation to do that. So I find teenagers are tricky. But give them lots of love, support. Parent relationships, it's tricky. I'm a mom, I get that. But just really understanding that they are trying to find independence, but they also don't want to be told what to do. Yet they still seek it sometimes. So there's a fine line.
I love that you brought that up, because, again, as a holistic life coach, I get it. I understand where their developmental stages are, but it is important for us to remember that they are seeking. It's kind of like the toddler who says no, right? They just say no because they just learned that no means what no means, right? So the awareness from the mindset of a teenager, for them to want to make decisions on their own. So how does that roll out? Like, do you say, oh, you could choose this or you could choose that? Or, like how I think about it, because I was really good at being a mom of a toddler. I'm not so sure how great I am as a mom of a 15-year-old boy. So
I don't know if any 15-year-old moms or dads necessarily think they're the best mom or dad. But maybe they do, but it's challenging no matter what.
And I'm just saying that I could definitely use some tools around, especially in the nutrition department.
Well, what I find, you're talking about your son, but it's more common with daughters, with girls, but boys just as much, is, that, once again, that diet restriction mentality. It's a bad cycle where, kids come out that I can't eat this or I can eat this. And then that restrictive mentality of, I'm not going to eat this, but then going off the deep end and eating twice as much, 3 times as much, not just for teenagers or kids, same with adults. And I think what the issue with our society in general is we've gone away from whole foods. We love to eat for pleasure, but not necessarily healthy. Half the foods we eat aren't even foods. They're man-made products. They're artificial. They're artificial sweeteners, coloring. They're made in a lab. They're not necessarily from the ground. They're not grown. They're not caught, fished in the sea. These are things that our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they ate far differently than we do. And what happens is we get away from what food is doing for our body. We get into our heads, like how it makes us feel. We get that quick rush, maybe from sugar, from caffeine, or from, some kind of sweetener. But we're not looking at really overall what it's doing to our body. And I think just educating, not scaring, because my goal is not to scare children of any sort. I want them to know that, how important healthy fats are. When I was growing up in the 80s, I was taught you don't want fats, you want no fat, low fat. They really, in the 80s, the whole trend was no fat. Right. And that is absolutely the opposite. Fats, healthy fats are so important. And, you don't even have to count necessarily healthy fats. You just need to eat them. These healthy fats are so imperative for especially development. And these teenagers, children of all ages, are developing so quickly. So what they're putting in their bodies is affecting their development, but their brain health. And even now, adults, as you grow older, they're finding more and more, the more omega-3s you're eating, that ratio of omega-3 and omega-6, and I won't get into specifics, but that affects these neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. So all these things, healthy fats are actually, these omega-3s in particular, are offsetting that. So what we put on our body affects not us, not only right now, not only a year from now, but 30, 40 years from now. And so just teaching kids like, okay, so what is the difference between a simple carb and a complex carb? How's it gonna make you feel? So basically giving them the general nutrition facts. There's no emotion to it. If you eat a lot of sugar, you're gonna crave more sugar, you're gonna have a spike in your energy, and then you're gonna crash. It is what it is. There's no emotional component there. That's biologically what happens. And just talking about why fruits and vegetables, children are gonna choose often some of these processed foods because it's easier and they taste good and they're marketed for them. But fruits and vegetables will give you so much. And just kind of going over that, but I can never tell a kid you have to do something. That's just not gonna ever work. So coming at it from an education perspective, but no matter what I do, it has to be fun, it has to be interactive, and it has to be meaningful. It's got to make sense to them. If I'm talking above them, or if I'm talking to something that doesn't interest them, there's no point. So there's so much to it with children.
It is. Well, it's very complex, and I think, again, from what I'm gathering and what I'm hearing of you, is just to really lay the foundation, plant the seed, so to speak, within their being, to say, one day, I hope that you make the choice. Like right now, I'm not going to force you to pick the fruit and vegetables over that, wrapped up bar. But I hope one day when you decide you are sick and tired of feeling that dull feeling, I'll call it, then you'll want to pick something live, and something that I often say to my clients, the brighter the better. The more bright and alive you want to feel, pick the brightest color that you connect with. Because I work with the chakras, so I always say the color signifies where you may be off. So if I need to get into my power, I'm going to pick a pineapple because I know that that's my yellow. Or maybe I look at the yellow and I'm like, ooh, I need that yellow, and that's where I connect with my emotional system in that power solar plexus to say, I'm going to stand in my power. So I look at that when it comes to color and food, that if we're being drawn to a specific color, and I make it a little bit more fun. My kids are kind of over me and they don't think that I'm fun, but from what I'm hearing you say to your clientele, just that you're planting the seed and you're going to give them the power to make the choice when they feel right. So now this leads to another conversation of attitude and that other pillar. So if a kid or one of your, an adult client has this bad attitude of life, do you correlate one with the other, and what comes first, the cart before the attitude or the food?
That's a great question. So I really believe, well, first off, as I mentioned, happiness through habits and certain things that you can do for mindset, you can affect your happiness. But happiness is a very broad term, and I don't want to come across like, oh, I want you to be happy. That's not my goal. My goal when I work with people is to get them to feel good about themselves. And ultimately that will lead to a more fulfilled, happy life. But ultimately, if someone comes with a very negative attitude, or they want me to make a change for them and tell them what to do, I have to change that around. I have to get the mindset that they are the ones that are in the driver's seat. It's their life. I'm a coach. I'm going to lead you, and hopefully you're going to take off and you're going to go where you need to go. But you need to be ready for that. You need to be open for change, and you need to understand that it's not easy. Nothing's going to be easy. Any change is not easy. But that how we change and grow is we go through hard times and we adapt. So it's same thing with healthy living. So I have some people that they want to make a difference initially, but they just don't know how. But their mindset, they're ready. They're ready for that change. And I have some people that come in that aren't quite ready. So then we have to work more on that mindset of what do you want? What are you willing to give? Because once again, and I believe this in all aspects of life, you come with your background, with teaching, you have your prior knowledge, your background knowledge. Same thing with your health journey or your mindset in general. And where do you want to go? You need to look forward, because you need to know if this is a journey that you're capable of and willing to go on. So much of it is the power within, and you have to be willing to work and make those commitments. There are excuses for everything. And I'm reading a great book, tying in something else, but the book is called "Success Is Not an Accident" by Tommy Newberry. I'm actually part of a couple book clubs with that book, and it's very inspiring because it's about habits and mindset. But it's not only, it's about goals it could be goals for business, it could be goals for, once again, self-development, it could be goals for habit change, lifestyle change. But what they say, his first part, the first 2 chapters about that, he calls them the excuse exploders. You can make an excuse, but guess what? There's always someone out there that's going to have it just as hard or harder than you, who's still going to get it done. And I'm not trying to say it's tough love all the time, and that's not what I'm saying. But you have to understand that, okay, you've got to get yourself together and decide, what do you want? Are you willing to make the changes that you need? And then go from there. And it's really a very introspective journey in anything.
Right. Oh, and it definitely is a reflection on some of the self-talk or some of the subliminal stuff that you've been taught, and to know that it's time to let go of those stories. It's time to let go of that mom, dad story, or teacher told you a story and that's how you're going to be. And it's you can recreate the story to make it look like you desire. I used to say, I tell a story about, there was a dog on a porch, and this old man was walking past the porch, and he heard this puppy like moaning and complaining, and the owner sitting next to him was like, "Oh, he moans all the time." And the old man said, "Well, I don't understand. Why is the dog moaning?" Like, "Well, he has a thorn in his foot." And he says, "Well, why don't you pull the thorn out?" He goes, "Well, because the pain isn't bad enough. Until the pain is so horrible, we will not pull that thorn out of the foot." So when you think about a human, oftentimes we live with pain, whether that pain looks like it doesn't equate to the lifestyle we want to live, the physical body that we want to create, the relationships that we want to deepen and fall more in love with, the outside influences that we attract into our lives. Until we're so sick and tired of the pain, we won't pull the thorn out. And to your point of like creating those excuses that sometimes we don't even create excuses. We just are fine with not being fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's the shift. And I think having a conversation like this is just the beginning stage of the awareness to say, maybe you're fine. I hear that often. "Elizabeth, I don't have anything wrong with my life." And I say this, we're not fixing anything. We're just shifting or trading so we can have more right in our lives, right? More of the abundance. And so I think that's the key thing, where you're saying is just, we're not pointing out the problems, we're pointing out what you could have, and really connect with that.
I always say forward momentum. I mean, you could either stay where you are, or you have forward momentum. I mean, really, where do you want to be? Once again, you make that decision. And another neat thing that we talk about when I work with people is resetting your reference point. So, we all have these reference points of where we are. But sometimes getting out of your reference point and seeing another perspective, or from a different point of view, or maybe not so much comparing, but seeing your life from a different person's perspective, and just putting things more, looking at it from a different perspective really makes a huge difference. And, reframing basically, that's a very powerful tool. I mean, there's some great tools that you can use to really shift your mindset. There's so many out there, but one particular I love is resetting your reference point, or reframing. And that you can use that in whether it's nutrition changes, lifestyle, business, I mean, any kind of change that you want to look at, anything with mindset.
That's awesome. And I would imagine many of your clients are seeing a holistic shift in all parts of their life. Not that, if they go to the grocery store, they start to change the things that they eat. They need to change their behaviors, not just with nutrition or not just with the attitude. Like I hear people say, oh, I'm positive, but they eat terribly and they're in terrible relationships and they hate their job. So it's about getting ready to trade in what you have and trade up, right?
Absolutely, 100%. That's why you say this holistic approach, because it really is. It's not just one little piece. It's all the pieces together because they all factor in. That's why, we call it the 4 pillars of health. You can make your own pillars in anything.
Right.
The foundations, it's very hard to change one thing and not affect the other parts of your life. And it's very important to have it all flow, because as you said, you could work out, you could do great and eat terribly and feel terribly about yourself, or you vice versa. You can feel great but wish you had done something different. It affects your mindset. There are pieces of the puzzle that all go together.
It's interesting. So is your favorite client to work with the teenagers or kids?
I love working with families together, children in particular. I love working with adults. I have some adults that just generally feel like they're in a rut. They're just stuck. They don't know what changes to make. It's very overwhelming because, as you know, there's so many programs out there, so many different eating plans and way of life, how you should be eating, when you should be eating, how much you should be eating, not just food related, but just health in general. Should I be gluten-free? Should I be dairy-free? Should I eat only, take out nightshades? There's something for everyone. There's millions of things out there. So it's very overwhelming. So I find I enjoy working with adults to try and hone in on just the basics. We don't need to go there. We don't need to, unless your doctor tells you something specific, we don't necessarily need to go to these extremes, to these overwhelming things. Let's start with the basics. And same with kids, just understand that it doesn't have to be complex. It can be simple. Our bodies are beautiful. They're meant to work a certain way. We need to fuel it with good fuel. We need to take care of our mind, take care of our bodies. We need to move our bodies, and we need to be good people. We need to feed our souls, however that might be. Faith, however you feed your own soul. So there's just so much, but it doesn't have to be one way or the other. It can, that's why I really try to go with moderation, and there's good for everybody in different things. There's just not one way that fits for everybody. And that's what so to answer your question, I love working with kids, but I love working with adults. I work with pregnant ladies. I love working with anybody that is willing to listen and make it change and really want to learn. Because I'm a big learner. I'm constant. Every day I learn something new. I'm trying to always build myself and learn more things. I love working with people that want to make a difference and that are open for that.
Yeah. And you became a health coach because why? What made you really, because you were into the science of it and then you got into school, then what made you decide to start your own business as a health coach?
It's a great question. A couple things. Becoming a mom was a big factor for me because I want to be clear, I am not a perfect mom in any shape or form. I've got teenagers that constantly want to eat junk and they, don't necessarily live the healthiest lifestyle that I would love them to live. But once again, that's factoring in that teenage and control, and I'm getting that. But what I really wanted to do, especially as they were young, is model what I felt was a healthy life. I wanted to model for them. So for me, educating myself and sharing, excitement, I'm working, doing a podcast with someone or sharing that journey with them, that to me is very inspiring. So that was one of the reasons. And the other one, of course, was sadly, I had 3 aunts that passed away. 2 were in their 50s and 1 had just turned 60 from cancer. And they were environmental cancers. They weren't necessarily genetic. And that was in the last 10 years. That's 3 aunts, very young women that were healthy that we lost. And that was a huge pain point, I guess you can say, because that really made me say, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to do as much as I possibly can to live the healthiest life I can. Because you know what? I just saw my aunts pass away, and I've seen how much that affects families, and it's horrible. And I really want to make a difference for me, but for my kids as well. So it's a combination of being a good model for my kids and seeing what my aunts went through, and trying to make as much a difference that I possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. I know you just triggered a story that I remember for several years ago. I had multiple clients who were women, and they had adult men as children. And I'm going to say like in their mid-20s, these boys were. And both of them happened to, these are totally separate cases, both of them happened to have abuse issues with drug abuse. And one story was worse than the other. One was incarcerated, in and out, and just bad. But both of these women on their own individual level were amazing. Upper middle class individuals, smart, just really had it going on the outside. To the onlooker, looked like the American dream. And so, the more I delved into their lives, I realized the one thing that they did not teach their children, and not that I'm blaming them as moms at all, but to your point about taking care of yourself. I think in our society, we have been taught by our predecessors, our ancestors, who were taking care of the home and would take care of the children, but they never took care of themselves. So that self-care, and we hear this word all the time, self-care, self-love, self-care, self-love. And I think it's very confusing in a sense to some people who don't know what self-care is. But it's just as simple as what you're saying is eating healthy, taking care of my mind, physically moving my body, realigning if I don't like something, change it, shift it, take care of my being, but also teach my children along this journey of while I'm raising them that one day they don't just go and figure out how to take care of themselves. They need to take care of themselves, and they need to see me do it first. And that's why even as a frustrated mom of teenagers, we're still saying, we're not saying do as I say, not as I do. We're saying, I'm going to show you. I eat really healthy 90% of the time. I could still go and have a glass of wine, a beverage, or a piece of cake, because, I'm all for chocolate cake. But I'm showing you the 90% that I want you to see. This is self-love. So I want you to take notes. And one day when you're ready to love yourself, because that day will come, you're not going to turn to drugs. You're not going to turn to the negative things that are taking you out of the game of life. You're going to turn to the things that add value to your life.
Yep.
And I believe that's what your pain point of where your aunts were, and that aha awakening moment to say, oh my gosh, I have 3 girls who are watching me every step of the way, and I need to show them, not just tell them.
Yes. Practice what I preach.
Yeah, and how big. But for them to also see that you're human, and that you also can, make mistakes or take a break, and have that leverage to say, it's okay, I can have this, because the other part of the time I'm filling up and loving on myself in these ways.
In our family, I have a funny story actually. So our family loves to eat. We have great eaters. I've always had very good eaters in my family. But we've always taught that, food is fuel. What you put in your body is what you're going to get out of it. It's going to affect how you feel. So yeah, go ahead. You can have whatever, you can have those desserts. Just know that afterwards, if you have too many, you're going to feel sluggish. It's just a fact of life. But so we really look at our body. For my family, my girls, we talk about strength, eating and living for strength and being strong. And one time, my middle daughter, who's 13 now, but a while ago, someone once said to her, oh, you're really skinny. And she took that offensively, because she thought, some kids would love to hear that. She was like, no, I'm strong. I'm not skinny. I'm strong. So it's just that mindset. It's just your philosophy. But if you're talking to your children about, oh, I can't eat this, or I gotta have, I have to drink, I can't drink this, I can't do something because of this, I have to lose weight, or look at me. If you're putting yourself down in front of your children, they're going to internalize that. So as parents, we have a responsibility to be very careful, almost even if we're insecure, because we all are insecure, shielding that a little bit. Because they don't necessarily need to see that, but they can see you talk it through. They can see, oh man, I really, made a mistake there, but you know what, next time I'm gonna, growth mindset, as we say, I'm gonna do something differently. That modeling that behavior, that mindset, that absolutely modeling that. But we have to be very careful with our children about how we talk about food, how we talk about other people's bodies. I mean, they are taking that all in, and that's really important. And one more thing I wanted to mention, before we were talking about, when we were talking about younger kids, about fruits and vegetables, focusing on, the education behind it. As a parent with young kids, you absolutely can enforce more things. You have much more, I won't say control, but you have, you're always in your house. You are in control of what you buy. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
You're the grocery shopper.
Exactly.
We're paying the bill.
When they get older, they have more outlets to get other stuff too. But what you have inside your house really will dictate, especially for the younger kids, how they are going to eat and how they're going to feel. So you can't, there is a struggle with picky ears with fruits and vegetables, but I have a whole thing I do with kids about fruits and vegetables, and I make it a fun thing. But I'm not going to tell parents not to give their kids fruits and vegetables, because that's imperative. We need fruits and vegetables, especially making sure you provide it. So I just wanted to reiterate, we went back to that, but I wanted to reiterate that I am in no way saying don't tell your kids to eat fruits and vegetables. That's not what I'm saying. I want your kids to eat healthy foods, and especially as they're younger, you can provide them for them, and once again, model that. As you get older, it gets a little bit more tricky, but I just want to make sure I clarify that. Fruits and vegetables, yes, I do want you to have your kids eat fruits and vegetables.
Absolutely. I know, I still make faces with my fruits and vegetables on my 15 and 6-year-old plates, just because I'm silly and I want them to think eating food is fun, right?
That's cute.
Well, thank you so much for all of your wisdom today, Hallie. I so loved and enjoyed our conversation. Tell us where we can find you. I know you've got lots of different locations, but we'll link them in the show notes. But give us where you most hang out, and the others will find you in the show notes.
All right, I'd say 2 spots. My website, Hallies Healthy Living, is just a great way to kind of get to know me and some of the things that I do, fun things that I do. And Hallie is spelled Hallie, so HalliesHealthyLiving.com. And then one of my favorite things is Facebook. I have a Facebook community called Hallies Healthy Living. And I post every day, sometimes, usually multiple times a day, healthy living tips, recipes, neat things I found, products that I love in the kitchen. And this is just more of an educational forum. I share some of the fun things I do with gardening. And I'm always learning, so I'm always looking at other resources. So I post a lot of resources I find. So my Facebook group, I would say, would be a great way to get to know me and some of the things that I like to promote. And in terms of if you just want to learn some healthy living tips. So Hallies Healthy Living on Facebook.
I love it. And I'm in the group, and I'm like in awe of some of the things that you put in, some of those recipes. So I'm like, I'm going to take that and grab that and make that one mine. And so I love being in your group. I appreciate what you're doing. I love that you're approaching it at a family level and just really educating people, because we are creating new happy lives, and we need to give them the foundation of what it takes to self-love, self-care for their entire life. So thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. And the Magnificent Mamas Thrive Show will thank you too. We'll see you next time.